So now we're going to take a look at simplifying some kind of complex order of operations problems. So taking a look off to the right, you'll see some hints on how to do that. Some students think that you can only perform one step at a time, and that's not necessarily true. You can actually chunk it into smaller problems if you look for addition and subtraction, because those are the last steps in order of operations. You'll be performing those last, so you can kind of create your own mini problems to evaluate all at the same time, and that helps it go a little bit faster. Looking through my first problem, I'm seeing a couple of grouping symbols, so I'm going to start off by identifying those. First of all, I see some absolute value signs. I see some mini parentheses, but those are just separating my subtraction signs from a negative sign, so I'm not going to worry about those. Those aren't actually grouping any operations together. But I do see one large set of parentheses here. So starting inside the innermost set of parentheses, I'm going to drop that first parenthesis because I don't really need it. I'm going to evaluate the absolute value of 8 minus negative 4. So if you remember your subtracting rules, we add the opposite. So it becomes 8 plus 4, and I'll be taking the absolute value of 12. I'm going to again use my add the opposite rule here, and this will become plus 4. And because I've got a subtraction sign, I can create a chunk right here of a mini problem I can go ahead and simplify. Negative 8 divided by negative 1 is positive 8. Next, still working inside that larger set of parentheses, absolute value of 12 is 12. So then I've got 12 plus 4 plus 8. So when I combine all three of those numbers, I get 24. Now to multiply the negative 6 times 24, since you probably don't have that fact memorized, we can make it an easier problem by splitting up the 24 as 20 plus 4, and then we can use distributive property with that negative 6. So the negative 6 times 20 gives me negative 120. Remember, the 6 times 2 is 12, and we just throw the 0 on. And the negative 6 times 4 is negative 24. Adding the opposite here, the negative 120 plus negative 24 gives me negative 144. The next one looks a bit complicated as well. We've got a lot of parentheses going on. Again, several of those parentheses are just surrounding our negative numbers, so those aren't grouping symbols. So I see this set of grouping symbols, and then we've got a larger group here and another set of parentheses here. So we can simplify the innermost set of parentheses on that first set at the same time we simplify the parentheses behind that division sign. So I'm going to change that outermost set of parentheses as a bracket to separate it from some of the other parentheses we've got going on. I'm going to drop the parentheses around the negative numbers. 10 plus negative 4, we can actually, because this is all adding and subtracting, simplify all of it at once. So the 10 plus negative 4 is 6. 6 plus 11 is 17. And 17 minus 9 is 8. Divided by 6, and again simplifying that second set of parentheses, changing my subtraction to adding the opposite, I get 1 plus 2 is 3. In that first step, I can drop that inner parenthesis. It's no longer necessary. The negative 16 minus 8 is negative 24, divided by 6 times 3. Multiplying and dividing in order, left to right, I will divide before I multiply. Negative 24 divided by 6 is negative 4, and negative 4 times 3 is negative 12. One more example on this page. First thing that you need to realize, and it's kind of hard to tell, this right here, these numbers look a little bit smaller because they are an exponent. Exponents are also kind of a way to group the order of operations. All of this needs to be simplified before we raise our negative 1 to that power. So I'm going to start there. The negative 6 plus 2 times 4. So we'll need to do our multiplication first. In the denominator, this fraction bar is a grouping symbol. So we simplify the numerator. It groups the numerator from the denominator. So in the denominator, I see grouping symbols with the absolute value, so I'm going to start there. Also, I can chunk this up and go ahead and perform this addition as well. So the negative 9 plus 8 is negative 1 minus absolute value, that negative 6 plus negative 2 is negative 8. Going back to my numerator, we still have some numbers in the exponent to simplify. So that negative 6 plus 8 gives us a power of 2. In the denominator, we'll take the absolute value of that negative 8. Remember, negative 8 is 8 units away from 0. The negative sign is simply a direction, but it does not impact the distance. In the numerator, when we take a negative 1 and square it, we multiply it by itself. Negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. Final steps of simplifying my numerator and denominator. 1 minus 8 is negative 7. Negative 1 minus 8 is negative 9. So I can do my final simplification. 7 and 9 do not have a common factor, but I can cancel both of the negative signs. So this becomes a positive 7/9.